All righty, sports fans, welcome on in. It's the Down and Dirty here on YouTube. So glad that you could be a part of my day and mine, part of your day. Always fun to bring stuff to you. This is an exciting day. The conference championship games were yesterday. Fascinating. Lots of insight. I think a lot of questions, maybe some concerns, things about, is this the best experience that we could possibly get? We'll find out. All right, let's get into it, though. I thought this was fascinating. And one of the things, the question was Jarrett Stidham, could he come into the game and could he, be up to the moment? Could he rise to the occasion? Early on in the game, it certainly looked like that was the case. And then everything changed. And boy, it started dumping snow in Denver, and it just made the conditions almost brutal. And it was a situation where, you're trying to find offense if you're the Broncos, and running the football was kind of a challenge. Maybe they should have done more of running the football. But it appeared to me that Jarrett Stidham just didn't quite have the experience to deal with the conditions. And really his only option was, well, let's just throw a go ball and see if we make something happen. Of course, he had the interception late in the game. Watching the game, there was a guy coming across the field and looked like he was a better option in that situation. They're playing a soft, kind of two shell, and the corner's playing way back. I mean, he's right there to make the play on the ball. And it's also one of those things where, where the heck are you throwing it in that situation? And again, it's just one of those things. And this isn't a knock on Jarrett Stidham. I just really think that he could have, he just was put in an impossible situation. And then when the weather came into things, it made it even more impossible. It was, it's like, gosh, this guy's getting his opportunity, and let's just make it even extremely worse than it possibly is. It clearly got into a situation where neither team was really doing anything that really, I don't think they could do anything, which brings me to a point that really bugs me. And people are going to argue this, whatever, but I just think weather should be gone away with in the NFL. When they have Super Bowls, they purposely put Super Bowls in areas where late in, you're in, well, you're now almost into February. You are into February when they're playing this game. And weather just, I don't think, should factor into these playoff games. I don't know that the game with the Broncos and the Patriots ends up being that game. Maybe, it felt like, that both teams were kind of struggling, but I don't know how good. I don't know if the conditions, if they had been different, would have bode better for Denver. I think it would have given them a better opportunity to win the game. Now everyone's going to say, well, everyone has to play in the same conditions, and I'm like, yeah, that's great, but I don't want to watch it. I want to sit there and watch two teams struggle in the snow, and where it shouldn't be that way. It's like, let's see who's really the best team under the best of circumstances. I don't care for the weather in those situations. I think every NFL game, every NFL surface, every NFL environment should be exactly the same. So many teams are going to these controlled climate stadiums. The Raiders play on grass. A lot of these teams play on grass inside. It's doable. Grass seems to be the preferred surface of everyone playing. So let's put the surface kind of a non-factor in games across the board, every single game in the NFL. I don't want to watch the weather. I really don't. It doesn't excite. I mean, you think of the fans, it's a miserable experience for the fans. The NFL is a great game. It's in a great place. I love what's happened in the playoffs, but man, the last couple of weeks, the weather has just really had a significant impact on games and outcomes. And I'm not sure the very best team actually gets to win in those situations. So I hope, I wish, I want, whatever, that the NFL would change it. They do it for the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is important enough. We got to have weather. Of course, they want all the fans to go and have a great experience, because most of them aren't necessarily fans. They're corporate type of people, they're whatever. Again, I mean, that's most of the people in the stadium for the regular season game. So if it's good enough for the Super Bowl to be done in good climate, and with the amount of money that's going on in the NFL today, I don't understand at all why they can't construct stadiums, new stadiums. Maybe it's like everyone says, well, we got to have electric cars by this, there's a mandate for compliance, whatever it is. That should be the mandate for compliance in the NFL is you have a stadium that's climate controlled. And look, I love the outdoor side of it, and have they have these stadiums that are indoor, outdoor, whatever. Make it make it available to be outdoors, even if it's a colder climate stadium. Fine, but that to me just wasn't really enjoyable, and it was almost to a point where I just don't even want to watch this. I feel so sorry for these players. Can't hold on to the ball, can't really move, can't really do anything, and who wants to watch that? I mean, you just don't. Now, there's there's uh, there's a lot of interesting things I think that kind of jump out at me with these games, and I don't want to. I'm not really here to break down the games and whatever in some in-depth manner, but I think there's some things that always stand out to me above anything else. Drake May, and this is what I'm just going to say what I love the most about these games. Drake May had a smile on his face at the very end of the game when the Patriots, they knew they were going to the Super Bowl. All he had to do was kneel down, and he had, he might have had one or two plays left, but he knew he was going to the Super Bowl. And the thing that I just absolutely loved the most was that smile. And you saw that the same thing with the Seattle and the players, and it's like all of a sudden the game's in hand, and they go, "Yep, we got this." The Puka didn't get out of bounds, and that was ball game, and it was over, and everyone goes, "Yep," and just what a what an exciting thing, and it's a thing that I absolutely love more than anything in the playoffs. Now, the thing that I think I also love the most is the whole do or die nature of what's actually going on, where and it's like every play, every mistake, everything that goes on in the game is just absolutely magnified. And so much of it is because you as the game goes on, that's over. Like there isn't next week, there's nothing else. So, the turnovers, the muff punts, the missed throws, the decisions to go for it on fourth down, all the little plays in the game, they're not just throwaway plays, and you feel it in the moment. You go, "Ooh," it just tightens the tension on things just closer in those situations where that's critical, and every play is critical, and it's just fascinating to watch how people handle the bigness of all of these situations. It's just fascinating to me, and to see how, because you go, man, and I think it would drive you nuts as a coach, a player, a fan, whatever. You go, if we only had done this, if we had only done that, and you feel it in the moment. You feel this sense of, oh, that was a big moment, that was a big play, that was just a really tough situation right there, and that could be a huge factor in who wins and loses this game. But it's almost every play, every moment is like so critical. You look at the game with the Rams and the Seahawks, and you go, kick the field goal at the end of the game, just kick the field goal. And then, because then you don't have to get like a touchdown. You just have to get, all you have to do is get a field goal. And I'm sure it's like one of those things, and I want to get into this, where it's this process of, the mentality when you play. This mentality of, man, we're going for it. We're going for it. And there's a lot of this mentality of this fourth down decision, and it's shown up consistently throughout the playoffs, and everyone talks about these analytics, and it really feels like, it's worked. It worked for the Patriots. It didn't work for the Broncos. It didn't work maybe for the Rams, but it's worked for, it's just kind of it's one of those tough things, and I think it would drive you nuts as a head coach to go, when to do it, when to not do it. And I think in the past, they really rely on these analytics and because in the past it's kind of a coach's gut feeling kind of thing. And you think of Sean McVay in the Super Bowl when he onside kicked to start the second half, those kind of intuitive gut decisions to do stuff like that. Of course, the kickoff has changed that rule right now, but it's just fascinating to me, this mindset, right? Um, and so here you have Sean McVay, and we don't have a quote other than Erin Andrews reported on the sideline that in her discussion with Sean McVay during the week, he talked about playing with courage, and this whole idea of courage and how we're going to play, with this courage and really go for it. We understand the challenge of playing in Seattle, and it really, I don't think it was an impact on the game. It's an incredible crowd, but when you have an opponent that's familiar and very familiar with you, I think that hostility isn't as much of an impact as it would for an opponent that maybe doesn't experience that or hasn't experienced that often. And you got a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, that's not going to rattle his cage or anything. But the thing about this courage, and this is what kind of threw me with this whole, this mindset, right? We're going to go for it. We're courage. And then his comment was, and then we'll just see what happens, and we'll live with that. And and I love the mindset, but I think it was limiting, and I think it was like, no, we're going to play courageously and win this game. And I think that because that's what it felt like. It felt like, yeah, the Rams are really they're trying hard, but it just seemed like they're always chasing. And that's a really hard thing in a game when you feel this, because it didn't feel like the Rams defense had any answer for the Seahawks. And maybe that's the reason why you go for it late in the game, because you're like, I don't know that our defense has really stopped anyone or can stop anyone. And who knows, maybe late in the game because the percentages eventually are going to fall in your favor. You're going to be able to hopefully stop them at some point, which they didn't. But I just this whole mindset of I don't know that they had the confidence necessarily in if you really ask them internally to win the game, the Rams. I think they maybe had, and you got to remember the Rams have been all over the country and then some, and there is fatigue there, and I think that has an impact, and it might have had an impact on their defense. And maybe it's a little easier for your defense to get juiced up and get excited and get emotional when you're home, and when you're constantly on the road and you just don't have the juice. And I'm not using an excuse because I think everyone was committed to. It's just something that happens, and every day we just aren't at our very best, and there are external circumstances that impact our performance. And I think fatigue from travel, being on the road like that, plays into the game, and I think it played into it to some degree. But I also this whole thought of courage and living with the results. It's like it just doesn't feel like it's this. I have a tremendous amount of confidence in that we're going to win the game. And the thing that also stands out to me about these games, and it's another fascinating concept or just circumstance that comes up from playing these games. There's this fine line. So I'm talking about this whole idea of courage with these coaches, and you're constantly like trying to push the envelope, and even the taunting call that gave the Rams the first down, and everyone's like, man, you idiot, what are you doing in that situation? And it's really so dumb. And yet there's other circumstances where we like the passion, we like the engagement, we like some of the greatest players ever in the history of the NFL are the biggest trash talkers in the world. Like trash talking is not, it's not a bunch of choir boys sitting out there going, oh yeah, and everyone says, oh, this is a dumb situation. How could you do it? And I'm probably one of them. But the reality is trash talking goes on. and you get in these one-on-one battles and you're in this close proximity when the defensive backs and the wide receivers are going at each other the whole game, and you're trying to get inside the other guy's head, and you're trying to also build yourself up and give yourself some confidence when you're in these circumstances. And so, eh, eh, you know, I'm not like, oh, you can't ever say anything. And this is that fine line of pushing, um the limits of, like, what's within the rules and what isn't. So you see these pass interference calls, or you see guys go off sides, or you see guys, whatever it might be, just some kind of penalty, some kind of situation. And I think it's one of those, especially in these big games, these fine lines, like where are we walking the line? How are we playing as a team? Are we on the edge? Are we on the other side of, maybe a little bit out of control, maybe a little bit, of we're just this go for it mindset, or it's like playing to win as opposed to playing not to lose. Because I think this playing not to lose in the game against the Patriots and the Broncos might have been, and I think it was, the best strategy, where Drake May and Bill Belichick says one of the great things about Tom Brady was he just didn't lose the game. He just didn't give you the game. He didn't throw the ball. It didn't, bad interceptions, dumb decisions. He just let you do that. And so that's this fine line that I'm talking about. But there's also this ability when it's on the line, when you really have to have a play, there has to be this willingness to just go for it and just let something whatever it might be. It's those big plays. It's those big plays for those players in the big moments, but it's also not losing the game. And so the big play for Drake May was to run the football. Like he won that game for the Patriots running the football. And he throws the ball pretty well. But in that circumstance, in that situation, that line, it's like, don't lose the game right here. And they talked to him about that because he has been turning the ball over a lot. And everyone's like, well, does that stifle a player? Because then you're playing it too close to the vest. And so this fine line is just a fascinating part to me. And then you go in the game in the NFC, and Sam Darnold very early on in this game, and they have the third down and in a short situation, and he throws an incredible pass that for I think it was a touchdown, or I think he might have gotten, but it was early on in the game. Hits a big play early, and I honestly think that was the game. And I know that's early, but if you have your quarterback and he has confidence and he's playing to win and he hits a big play early, it's massively plays into his confidence, plays into, that he's kind of gotten the ghost of the past, that he's out of his own head, that he's into it, because Sam Darnold, and everyone said, had played the best game of his career in that situation. And it was in that moment where a lot of guys maybe don't take that shot. They don't, it's like, and I know the guy was wide open and all of that, but it's that kind of, where are you on this line, this fine line between, really going for it, but also not losing the game, because Sam Darnold didn't do anything to lose the game. He was incredible. It was just a remarkable thing to watch this game and watch the evolution of Sam Darnold. Because I mean, holy cow, this was a game that I think the NFL, in its arrogance and pride, has a hard time with. I think this game, the NFL has a hard time with this change of who are the names. You could go, oh, because they love Matthew Stafford now. I don't think they did, 5-10 years ago, before he left Detroit. He wasn't a name people go, oh yeah, we can see Matthew Stafford winning. It's taken the second half of his career to kind of get that cachet and that that respect and that relevance. but you don't have Josh Allen, you don't have Sam Darnold. Even Bo Nix was starting to develop into one of those players. Aaron Rod, the big names in the quarterback situation aren't in this Super Bowl. And a lot of it isn't in this playoffs. I mean, you look at the only guy who had really any kind of significance was Matthew Stafford. And the other guys were just, kind of whatever. And so it's fascinating to me that we have now Drake May had an incredible season. He's a guy that was picked very high, and so they liked him, and he's done a remarkable job. But he's not that household name yet, and this to me is kind of that moment, and it's to me it feels like it's a shift in the power structure in the NFL, and it always happens. I think of the coming out party of a guy like Joe Montana in the 1982 Super Bowl with Ken Anderson, and I don't think anyone said, "Oh yeah, those guys are they're household names now." Now they are now, but in that moment they weren't. A lot of people were like, and not only that, but the Super Bowl was in Detroit. It was miserable. It was frigid. A lot of people were super late to the game because of it was basically a traffic jam. They were all trying to drive on what was essentially an ice rink. It was horrible, horrible conditions, terrible, and it feels like this is a kind of Super Bowl where everyone, it's all about whose dynasty, whose legacy is starting in this Super Bowl. You look at these two quarterbacks, you look at these two coaches. I mean, we haven't even talked about the coaches yet, and it's just like, Mike McDonald, where he came from, is just insane. How his evolution to becoming a Super Bowl, coach is incredible, and Mike Vrabel very similar. I think people said Mike Vrabel could be a really good coach when he out Belichick. When the master says, "Take the pebble from my hand," and Vrabel did, and not only did he do it, but he really, I don't want to say surpassed, but he really kind of has answered all of the bells. And he had an interview, it was really interesting as well, and he just talked about everyone's journey to getting where they were in the NFL, and it feels like these two coaches have done a remarkable job on building expectation, building belief, building confidence, and it's been remarkable. I mean, to take Sam Darnold, who was washed up goods, like this guy was, it was bad. He was a guy that was on his farewell journey. These high draft picks who bounce around the league and they just go from team to team, and eventually they just slide away. If they don't perform early, it's like you're out, you're done. And there's so many of them that have fit that bill. There's a ton of them, so to build that confidence, because you're that guy, you're Sam Darnold, and there's more doubt in your head than there is belief, even when you're doing well, like when you're a guy that's like, oh. Like he's 14-2 or 15-2, whatever he was with the Minnesota Vikings, and having a phenomenal year. In the back of his head, he's still like, yeah, but I've seen ghosts before, and they scared me. And it's remarkable to take someone like that and get them to the biggest sporting event in our country. And to be able to do the coaching job to do that, and also the recognition. They went out and they picked Sam Darnold. They said, "This is our guy. This is who we want." Which I again believe. Whoa, what a tremendous thing. And the same thing with Mike Vrabel taking a guy like Drake May, who's very young, going to be the second youngest quarterback to start a Super Bowl, and take him through a year when you go, when's the shoe going to fall off? When's this guy going to show his age? And he did everything he had to do, including whatever it took to win a game in the worst of conditions on the road, and get to the Super Bowl. And so it's just fascinating how these coaches have just built the confidence of these teams and what they did to do that. Now, um, I just wonder, are we ready? Um, are we ready for this? Can we handle? Can we handle two unknown quarterbacks, two not household names? I mean, they're getting there, and everyone, you think about Sam Darnold, the householdness of him is, well, we'll see. And Drake May is like, yeah, I mean, he's young. It's not like they don't go, it's just so dumb. Like it's just the dumbest thing, and so this is to me another fascinating part. So someone's legacy is going to be born, and it's going to be fascinating to see who it is. Now, speaking of quarterbacks and relevance, and this was a fascinating stat. Of course, um, they're in the 2018 class, and they showed this, and it's just so remarkable to me. There's Baker Mayfield, there is Josh Allen, there's Lamar Jackson, there is um, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. So you have Lamar Jackson, MVP, Josh Allen won more playoff games and not been to a Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield, of course, he was the first pick in the draft. He's kind of turned it around. And the first guy to go to the Super Bowl is Sam Darnold. And I think a year ago, I think at the beginning of this season, if someone was asked that question, they'd say, well, it's going to be Lamar. it could be Baker Mayfield. Look at the season, look at the turnaround that he's had. And the first one to go is Sam Darnold, which is just so funny. And I love this, by the way. I absolutely love this, but it makes me wonder how many Sam Darnolds are out there. How many Sam Darnolds did we not have the privilege of watching develop and grow, and this lack of patience, and it's also kind of getting in the right situation, with guys. You look at Zach Wilson, who was the number 2 pick for the Jets, and he's kind of on his farewell tour. He went to the Broncos. He went to the Dolphins. Is he a guy that, is it over for him? I mean, because they didn't play him in Miami. They played Quinn Ewers, and so is he a guy? And how many of these guys are out there that, we just don't know about, and we may never know about. And I think that's a sad thing. I'm not sure how to fix it, because not every coach, not every organization, not every circumstance in the NFL is good. As a whole, the league is, but there's a lot of bad organizations that really don't understand and develop quarterbacks. Now, here's a fascinating thing for you. Sam Darnold received $500,000 for throwing over 4,000 yards, another $500,000 for 67% completion rate, $500,000 for a top 10 offense, $500,000 for a playoff berth, $500,000 for a division round win, $500,000 for a conference championship. Remarkable. I can't imagine. It's like every week it's like, here's an extra $500,000, and good for him. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we'll pay you if you perform. And he's like, I think I did that.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated with style and durability. You can trust Tervis tumblers to keep your drinks the perfect temperature, hot or cold, for hours. From the classic insulated tumblers to sleek stainless steel water bottles, each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
Hey, sports fans, welcome back. It's the Down and Dirty. Scott Mitchell here. As you can see, it's a group of us on the channel here. And so we have Zach to my left and Martin to my right. And they have curious questions. And a lot of times we'll be in the background and they go, hey, what about this? And I go, oh, that's a good one. Let's talk about that. But we're not going to talk about it until we get on the air. So they have questions. I have answers. We're going to see if we can come up with some solutions here. So Zach, fire away. What's your question?
So my first one was, we had gotten to a discussion about the color of the Dolphins jerseys earlier.
Yes.
And for some reason it made me think of Ace Ventura, but it also then made me think then, because I know sometimes that quarterbacks are the ones in charge of holding the PATs. Yes. And it just made me wonder if you ever had the opportunity to do that. And if so, how it went.
Well, let me tell you a story. So there was a philosophy, and I think it's changed for the most part. The philosophy was that the backup quarterbacks held on most teams, and certainly for the Miami Dolphins. And a lot of that reason is that if there's the opportunity for a fake, or also, believe it or not, quarterbacks have the best hands on the team. And the reason they do, if you think about it, every day you go to practice and you'll throw a football, and a lot of times you're throwing it to the other quarterback. So you're constantly catching footballs from quarterbacks, and taking the center quarterback exchange is this process. You're constantly handling a football. You're holding it, you're protecting it in the pocket, you're catching it, you're doing all these different things, and you get very adept at actually touching. And I say this all the time, quarterbacks have the best teams on the team. So between those two thought processes, it seemed the most logical thing to have quarterbacks hold. Now, when I got to the Miami Dolphins, they told me this, and they said, look, quarterbacks hold. If you want to be the backup quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, you better figure out how to hold a football. I've never held a football in my life. Because I was always the starter, so now I'm relegated to being a holder. And I never done it. It was in a mini camp, when I first got there. And so they start showing me the mechanics of how to do it. Now, I learned some tricks along the way, but at first I was horrible. I mean, I was so bad. So they go, let's just go kind of half speed. So they snap a couple, I set it down, and the kickers are really particular about how you set the ball down. Not only how you set it down, but where. Like there's a spot. Like they put their toe, and you put your finger down right at the end of their toe, because their steps, it'll throw their steps off if you're back from that spot or too far forward or whatever. So you got to land on the spot. And there's a real trick to figuring out how to land on the spot. And I'm going to tell you in a minute, but I'm going to tell you how horrible this was to start with. So we kick a few kicks, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. And he goes, now let's go full speed. So you have to catch the ball, you have to put it on the spot, you put your finger on top of it, you have to tilt it just a little bit, and then you have to spin the laces so they're aimed out straight. And you do this in a really, really short time, because basically when they snap the ball, the kicker starts moving towards the ball, and he's just having faith that you're going to get all of these things down right. So I get the ball, put it down, go to spin the laces. My hand is still in front of the football, and he kicks the football and kicks my hand with the ball. And I will just tell you, it was the most painful thing in the world. And now I'm just like, I'm totally gun shy. I'm just freaking out. I'm like, this just sucks. This is horrible. I hate this. There's a famous kick, and y'all are going to know this. So Scott Norwood, who kicked the ball for the Buffalo Bills, and it was the wide right kick, right? And the guy holding for him was Frank Reich, who was backup quarterback for the Bills. And of course, I was really attuned to holders at that time, because I was holding for kicks and extra points. And I talked to Frank about this later on. I said, dude, man, you didn't put the laces in the front. Like, it was literally like laces out, Dan, like in the movie. And he didn't. And he goes, I know, and I did it on purpose. And I go, please explain. And he said, in pregame warmups, Norwood was hooking the ball like crazy. Like, he was tugging them. Like, they were just, and so he says, my thought process was to put the laces in the wrong spot. So with him hooking the football, it would actually go more straight. But when he kicked the ball, he kind of just guided it in. He didn't just, he just didn't make, it's like you just got to swing the club, you can't try to guide it in there. And he tried to kind of wish it and hope it in. And he probably thought in his mind, hey, I've been hooking them all, in warm up. So, cause you can imagine that would get in your head as a kicker. You'd be like, okay, you overcompensate. You see kickers do it all the time. They overcompensate for it, but the holder actually overcompensated. I don't know if he talked to Scott Norwood before he did this or not, or he just took it upon himself to do it or whatever. And so the laces have an impact on the ball. It'll pull, and if you're inches in a world, where, especially on longer kicks where there's more time for the ball to react or to move or to curve, whatever, it becomes really, really relevant. Now, Pete Stoyanovich was our kicker in Miami. And he said, listen, extra points, you can put it down on the ground sideways. Like, if you fumble it, bumble it, stumble it, you just put it on the ground. I'll kick it, because it's an extra point. Like, it's not hard to do. And now, in the whole time I did it, I will just tell you, the absolute worst job I've ever had. I hate it. I cannot stand it. The only time you get any recognition for it is when you screw up. You go into a lot of games and you're cold, where you're just sitting on the sideline. And so, getting your hands warm and supple enough to catch the ball, it was a really hard thing. I had one extra point that I messed up in my whole time doing it. But other than that, I had no issues. Now, I learned some tricks, and this is kind of interesting, because I told you about, you got to get the ball on the right spot. And how you do that is you anchor. So I had my back knee up. So my front knee was down on the ground. My back knee was up, and I rested my elbow right against that knee, and then I put the spot down on the ground. So there was a constant spot for my hand. And then the tendency, especially if a kicker kicks your hand, is you're trying to reach out and grab the ball. Like, you're trying to hurry, so when it snapped to you, the tendency is to bring your hands out in front of you, but then you have to pull them back and set it on the spot. And what I learned is the ball traveling back to me was far faster than me reaching out for it. So you just let the ball come right into your hands. And we had a center who was so good, he got to where literally he could snap it, and the laces were almost in the front every single time.
Wow.
And then I had another trick, and I would put something down on the ground, like you'd find sunflower seeds, or you'd find a blade of grass, or I might twist a little bit of grass together so you can kind of visually see where your spot is. When we played on AstroTurf, you can actually lick your fingers and put and make a moist, wet spot where the ball, there's all these little tricks.
Yeah.
And so, but the biggest thing I learned was letting the ball come to me and not reach out for it. But I will tell you, the worst job in the world. Now once I started playing and I was a starter, they're like, we don't want you, no, holding's bad. Like, we don't want you to hold, that's for the loser backup guys, and so I went to Cincinnati, and they said, hey, we understand you held before, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they go, well, do you mind if we'd like to see you hold. And I'm like, okay. And I purposely just did a horrible job. Like, I made the kicker. So I knew all the things to make the kicker uncomfortable, because it's like, I'm not holding. I've retired from that job. I'm not going back. I'm not doing that job ever again. I would watch game film of holding because I was so nervous, and it was so nerve-wracking for me to do, because I did not want to screw it up. We had one time where we called a fake field goal. It was against the Houston Oilers, and there was a certain look they had, and if they lined up in this look, we had it. And so I had to call, like, green or something like that, which meant go, like, we're gonna go for this. And so I'm doing it, and our guy jumps off sides. And I'm like, oh man, this was my big moment, man. I was gonna run a fake field goal, and we were gonna, anyway. So besides that, I had one mishap. It was in Buffalo, New York, and the wind was howling, and the ball came back to me like a Charlie Huff knuckleball. And I basically just trapped it on the ground, and and 10 guys hit me before I could do anything. So there's that question. Martin, you got a question for me?
Yeah, I got a question for you. We've talked
Did
about
you appreciate that answer, by the way?
I did. That answered everything I wanted to know. Thank you.
Kind of an interesting thing.
All
Holding, I hate it.
Of course you did. I mean, just the fact that you were a left-hander, I would hate.
Well,
believe it or not, being left-handed actually helped me hold. It was
really?
actually easier to hold as for a right-footed kicker. Like, if I had to hold for a left-footed kicker, it would have been really hard for me.
That makes sense, but it does seem like a job that's not necessarily fun to do.
No, it's now what they do is they have the punters do it now.
Yeah,
because they spend so much time together that they build a camaraderie. There really is a level of trust and comfort between the kicker and the holder, getting it just right. So
just keep the 4 special team guys together. Don't let them interact with anybody else.
They're not football players anyway.
Yeah,
so
they're not football players. Okay,
they shouldn't even be allowed in the locker room. They should have their own special.
What do they do? They just sit there and just
as a former long
while,
snapper,
okay?
I disagree with this, but let's just keep going.
They demand everyone on the sidelines to get out of the way so they can practice kicking and into a net and all that stuff.
You hate them until you need a kicker or a punter, and then
you got a point there.
And long snappers, man, long snapper is a different thing. Long snapper is the best job in all of football. Like that is a job, because you can do it forever. You don't even have to be in shape to be the long snapper. And in fact, it's better if you're not. The optics of it looks so much better if you got a little pudge on you, Anyways, go ahead, Martin.
Scott. So we've talked about this before. You hated Memorial Stadium very much. You hated the Philadelphia Eagles' old grounds that there was, okay? But was there another stadium that you just dreaded absolutely so much? You're like, I don't want to get on this plane. I don't care if it's fine or nothing. I'm not playing in that stadium, period, end of story.
Yeah, there are stadiums like, and it's kind of weird. It's more the playing surface. So Veteran Stadium in Philadelphia, of course, is one of those stadiums that I hated. But and it wasn't even the fans per se. I kind of give the fans a hard time in Philadelphia, and they deserve a hard time. But you have a lot of seams in the old baseball stadiums. And so they would and it was the seems like they would have a cutout for third base and second base and first base, but during a football game they put the turf down in there, and it wasn't just a seam. They had like three. It was like it was weird how they had it. And so it was like, think of going over railroad tracks, when you're driving a car, it was like it's a bump, 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 going across those seams where the bases were. And it was just a horrible surface to throw at. But I'll tell you, this will sound weird. And it was Old Texas Stadium. It was weird because a lot of the stadiums have a crown to them. So in the middle of the field, and it's so the water runs off the field. And I don't know what they did. It's almost like they had just buried someone in there, and it was just like this huge mound in Texas Stadium. So you're in the middle of the field and you're throwing an out route. The guy, when he gets to the out, is almost at he's like waist high, and so it's almost like you're throwing the ball downhill. You could throw a normal pass, like a normal out route in Texas Stadium, and actually throw it high, and it isn't high because there was such a drop off. At least it kind of felt like it was that drop off. But I will tell you, and that one wasn't a fun one. Now, as much as I enjoyed Green Bay, why I enjoyed it, I don't know, because we didn't have a lot of success there. But the one place I absolutely hated was Milwaukee County Stadium. And there was a time where the Green Bay Packers had an agreement with the city of Milwaukee that they would play, you have 8 regular home games, and I think they would play 2 of their 8 in Milwaukee. So think of that. You have Lambeau Field, this incredible, iconic place, and you go, yeah, we're going to give up 2 home games a year to go to Milwaukee. And not only are we going to go to Milwaukee, but we're going to play in their baseball stadium. So you're on the same side of the field. Like both teams are on one side of the field, and there's this yellow marker at the 50-yard line. And it's like you can't pass the yellow marker. Like it was this imaginary boundary. And so you're at the 49-yard line, and you look over to your left or right, depending on which side and there was the other team. And they're just right there. And it's like, how can you talk on the sideline? How can you do anything on the sideline when you have the other team on your sideline? It made no sense. There wasn't even a buffer zone. There wasn't like a 10-yard separation. It was a yellow strip of some kind of, tape almost, there was, maybe it was a yard wide.
Almost.
And it was like, it's like, this is the demilitarized zone. You're not allowed in here. You can get shot. You can't go there. It was, I'm telling you, it was horrible.
Wow.
I hated that place. And we ended up playing there. And there's no there. You go out there, and I would imagine it's a lot like, because there's a sound to football and a sound to the stadium, and the sound is you don't hear any. All you hear is this loud roar. You hear the hum of the crowd, so you don't hear yourself talk. You don't hear the clashing of your pad. You don't hear what you hear in practice. And so when you go in a game like this, you're like, man, this is the clown show. This is a real NFL game. Like it's just a joke. And so that was one for me that I just absolutely hated. And they got away from that. They stopped that. They had some kind of agreement with the city, and they got rid of it. And I actually got hurt in a game in Green Bay. In fact, it was well, it wasn't Green Bay, it was Milwaukee. And it was kind of a situation where, I don't know if you remember Lomas Brown, one of my former teammates, offensive lineman. He worked at ESPN, and he's like, his claim was he was in a contract year, so he wanted to be controversial, so they would keep him on, so the more hot his take was, the higher his salary was going to be. And they asked him about, as a player, did you ever get frustrated when the quarterback wasn't playing you? So, oh yeah, man. And so he goes on this tirade about how he was upset at how I was playing in Milwaukee. And I'm like, have you ever been to Milwaukee? No one can play good in Milwaukee. Like, yeah, I was mad, just so you know, Lomas. Anyway, so he makes this big comment that he literally let his guy go. And he's hoping that the guy would hit me, tackle me, and hurt me and get me out of the game. That was his claim. It wasn't true because the footage lied, right? And it showed that he was lying. And it was actually Barry Sanders' guy that actually hit me. So I got hit, and it was not a big deal. I wasn't even sacked or anything in the play. And I got hit, and it was and I broke a bone in my wrist. And it was just kind of a glancing hit by a guy passing me, and he hit me with his helmet. Anyways, that play happened in Green Bay, and so that's been, some people are like, how is it to have one of your former teammates decide he wasn't going to block for you, and then Lomas apologized for it, and it was a weird deal, but yeah, absolutely. Milwaukee, I'm glad they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, no, that looks bad.
Yeah,
that does look bad.
All right, is that all we have for today?
I have one more quick one, if I may.
Yeah.
And this comes off of the conversation that you and Herman were having yesterday. And you talked about, I think when you were playing the Packers, that sometimes you would look over to see if you could get signals from them. I just want to know, is there an instance, not even necessarily of that, of where like you scanned the defense and saw something, or you were able to see something on the sidelines and it just clicked and you were able to just use that and make just a great play out of it? I like the moments where you just kind of looking at it, I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And then make it kind of. Yeah.
There's there are times when, so when I was drafted by the Dolphins, they handed you the playbook and they said, okay, you call your own plays in practice, and you're required to call a play and change it if it's a bad play. So you have, or if there's something you just see and you feel, you have the freedom to go and change the play at the line of scrimmage. And so there, so that's how I was introduced to the NFL. That's what I knew. And then I go to Detroit, and they didn't say I could or I couldn't. They didn't say anything. And the very first play that I ever played in Detroit, like the first play, it wasn't even the Atlanta Falcons. It was our home opener, and it was the first play of the game. And we had, I believe we had a running play on, and they had more guys than we could block, right? And so you just come up with the line of scrimmage and go, okay. So I changed the first play. The first play I ever had in Detroit, and I believe it or not, actually called a pass play, and I called a slant route, and I hit Herman Moore on a slant route. It was like a 17-yard gain on the first play that I was in Detroit. Now we did things where, it's hard to describe to people, but there's a lot of like nonverbal communication that goes on, and it's not, there's some stuff that's like, it's like you give a signal, right? And so that's obvious, but there's sometimes when you just kind of look at them, you just kind of look at them through the side, you tilt your head, or you kind of nod, or you something, and they kind of nod back, and you just like, okay, we know what we're doing right here, and it's no signal, it's no plan. And we started, especially down on the goal line, we'd have a running play called, and I kind of tilt my head sideways, and Herman Moore would, yep, gotcha. And we would throw a fade route, and it was a running play. And that was a lot of the RPO stuff. Now, there wasn't this play action fake or keep the ball, with a lot of it, but it's like we had running plays on. And I remember coming over to the sideline, we just scored a touchdown, and our offensive line coach, Paul Boudreau, is just beside himself. He's like, what are you guys doing out there? It's a running play. It's like, you're going to have a illegal man downfield. And I'm like, I'm taking one step and I'm throwing a fade route. Like, this ball's gone so fast, no one's going to even know. And in a lot of ways, it helped the play because it looked like a run, and it was a run. And there were only two people that didn't know it was a run. And then there's another one that it's when you have a running play on, and you talk about, you just come up the line of scrimmage and just go, okay, I'm just going to keep this, right? And you'll see players that do this. And there was one time I was playing with the Cincinnati Bengals, And Corey Dillon on this day, I think he rushed for, I don't know, it was like 260 yards. It was a record in the NFL, like him personally. Like he had this day. Corey Dillon, by the way, was a great running back, very underappreciated running back in the NFL. One of my favorite running backs, actually, believe it or not, and I played with Barry Sanders, but Corey Dillon, man, he was a hammer. Whoa, he was a good running back.
Loved watching him. Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't tell anyone. I don't tell Corey. I don't tell a soul. And we have I want to say it was like a 4th down, and we decided to go for it. And it's like 4th and 1.5. And so I fake the handoff and I run around the end and get the 1st down. And it continued to drive, and it actually allowed him to break the record at the time to keep that drive going, because it was pretty late in the game at that point. And then I think a couple of plays later, he goes and gets the record. But it's one of those things where it's hard to describe. It's not like someone just says, okay, if you have this, do this. It's like you just go, right now, this is what I should do. And it's really an intuitive thing. It's just an instinct thing. It's not, you don't change a play a lot of times. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And now when I was with Bobby Ross, like they're like, you do not audible at all. And like, you're not changing anything. And that was hard because I remember we were playing the New York Jets. In fact, Aaron Glenn, who's the coach for the Jets now, he was the cornerback. Bill Parcells was playing. It was a game where we won the game. We were in the playoffs. And the same thing with the Jets. The winner of the game made the playoffs. Barry Sanders rushed for over 2,000 yards in the game, and we had a player die on the field. Like he actually died. He broke his neck, and he swallowed his tongue, and basically choked. And they revived him on the field. It was just a surreal game. But there was a moment, sometime during the game, and I'm like, oh man, I should call this route. And it's, you run hitches on the outside, and you run your slot receiver on a seam, and you pump the hitch because the free safety will fly to the side you pump, and then the seam route's wide open. And it's a play that still run in the NFL today. We ran it all the time when I was in Detroit with Tom Moore, and he took it with him, and Peyton Manning threw it all the time, and John Gruden threw it in Tampa Bay. And in fact, he got Rich Gannon to throw an interception on it because the free safety didn't in the Super Bowl when the Bucs beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl. And so I was like, oh, I wish I could call that play right now. And I was just like, no, I can't. For whatever reason, that play just still sticks out in my mind, because I'm like, that would have been a touchdown, but they wouldn't let me change the play. So.
For 75 years, Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. No gimmicks, just durable, well-designed bottles built to last. Join us in our mission to amplify life, not complicate it. Because at Nalgene, what goes into our bottles matters as much as the adventures they fuel. Explore more at nalgene.com. That's NALGENE.com.
I know you're gonna love this Kodak Dot Plus printer. You guys just connect it to your smartphone, and then you're gonna use the Kodak Photo Print app. It's going to print you a 4x6 photo. I am just in awe. I love how these turned out. Also, the printer comes with a free cartridge of 10 photo sheets. I can assure you, you are going to love this printer as much as my family has. You guys have to check it out for yourself.
Welcome to Kitbag, the ultimate destination for football fans. Whether you're cheering for Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, or any other top club, we've got your team's colors running through our veins. From official replica kits to custom player prints of your favorite stars like Ronaldo, Messi, and Kane, Kitbag is your one-stop shop for all things football. Powered by Fanatics, we deliver to over 180 countries, ensuring you get the gear you need fast. For true football passion, think Kitbag. Visit kitbag.com today. That's kitbag.com. Kitbag.
Farmhound's approach is a little different than a traditional treat company. We get to work with local farmers who are putting everything they can into regenerative farming. From the soil to the animals to the ecosystem. They care about how animals are raised and how we treat the earth. It's not just product, but it's part of that story. It's connected to just a whole lot more.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome back to the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on YouTube. So glad you could join our show. This is going to be a fun hour. We got some very interesting topics and discussions to go over. Ran across this, the 15 most likely to not be broken records in NFL history. It's quite a list. It's quite a list of teams, players, coaches, and could they potentially be broke? So let's get right into it. Of course, we have to begin with. We have Derek Thomas. Okay, so this is this is one of the 15 most unlikely records to not be broken, and this is of course, well, it's just an opinion, but is it really? All right, Derek Thomas, 7 sacks in a game. And there are a few players that have actually come close to this. They've gotten, 6-ish, and they've come close, but no one's gotten to 7. And I remember actually when this happened, David Craig was sacked. I believe he was with the Seahawks at the time, and Derek Thomas. And I'm just like, as a coach, you got to make an adjustment, like chip the guy, double team the guy, do something at some point. But 7 sacks is just absolutely ridiculous. And that it's not just 7 times like your quarterback's been hit. Like he's probably been hit a whole lot of other times in that game. It's impressive that David Craig actually stood up after that. Can this be broken? Here's the challenge with these unbreakable records is the league's now gone to 17 games. So is there an impact in that? I think sacking quarterbacks today is a lot more challenging, only because now you have Myles Garrett, who just broke the single season sack record. And again, it's an extra game. Teams are throwing the ball a lot more. So is this an unbreakable record? I'm going to bring in Martin and maybe Martin, you just say, just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, yes or no. 7 sacks, Derek Thomas. Will that be a record that actually gets broken?
No, that's a record that'll never be broken. It's just
okay.
You bring up the rules changes real quick. With the way that players can land on quarterbacks these days and touch them, no, I don't think that record will ever be broken. That's untouchable forever.
All right, the most receptions in a season is from Marvin Harrison, and he had 143 receptions in a season, which is quite insane. It's absolutely insane what the number of receptions he had in a season, and of course he had this great relationship with Peyton Manning. He was a guy that didn't say a lot, just showed up every day and was absolutely incredible, remarkable, just a tremendous wide receiver. But do you think that I think at the time the next closest was like 31 receptions less. But this one to me personally feels like, and again, just with throwing the football so much more, the wide receiver becoming a much more important part of the game. This to me feels like one of those situations where, yeah, I think this one could be broken.
I agree. I think it depends on which team does it and which wide receiver. I'm surprised this hasn't been broken already, especially with like the likes of Antonio Brown and Julio Jones would have played, and I thought they would have broken this one by a mile. But I think this one could be broken just in the right situation. I agree.
Okay, the next one, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 26 straight losses, and that's the most ever. So it's not the most losses ever. It's 26 losses in a row. And I'm telling just knowing, like, I can't imagine what that was like for that team. If you've ever, there's just a grind about an NFL season. It's almost two complete seasons of losing just straight games in a row. Of course, if you play Tampa Bay 2 times a year, like when they were in the NFC Central and now they're in the NFC South, and you go, yeah, I'd love to play the Buccaneers in that situation. But the grind you have to go through as a player, brutal. The way it just feels like to me, the NFL is there's a better chance even as bad as you look at like the New York Jets or some of these teams that are just horrid, or how bad the Cleveland Browns, you just find a way to win a game, something in a season. I think 26 games in a row, I think that one's actually a pretty safe record. And I don't know that I'd want that record, but I think it's safe.
No, I wouldn't want that record as well. I agree. That won't be touched. We've seen close moments. Obviously, the Lions going winless, the Browns going winless, but they never were that much worse the next season. So I think this one is pretty safe in the bag too.
All right, next one, George Blanda. Of course, he played 26 seasons in the NFL, and he kind of looks like Aaron Rodgers. Do you see a little Aaron Rodgers there? And
I
of course,
can see
Fred
it,
Biletnikoff, who actually is much younger, looks like he's a lot older than George Blanda. He's kind of in the background of that photo, but the 26 seasons in the NFL, which is forever. And you see, I actually think this one could be broken. I know it's kind of crazy, but with the way the players train, the softness of the game these days, there certainly is there's probably a quarterback along the line somewhere who I think could, I don't know, Brady, what was he, 23 seasons or?
Yeah, 23.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm going to change my mind. I don't think that one's, and this happened, back in the 70s, like in the 60s. And that, I mean, this is back when football was football. So, anyways.
I think could be broken if the Raiders can't find a quarterback. It's very, very tempting for just Tom Brady to be like, I'm an owner and a player.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a possibility. All right. The San Francisco 49ers won 18 straight road games in the NFL. It's one thing to go 18 straight games, but straight. So they didn't lose on the road, essentially for over 2 years. I mean, that's really, because you're going to have 8 road games. So it was over 2 years of not losing on the road. And in the NFL, there's always been a significant advantage to a home team. Like a lot of times home teams win, and to do that now, people might argue, well, they played in a kind of soft division at the time. And so, racking up a lot of wins in a row, maybe that's not as hard a thing, but when you're the 49ers, you're going to be playing the hardest schedule, right? Because you win all these Super Bowls, and so you're playing the best teams and so to win on the road is massively significant. I say this one will not be beaten.
I agree. This one won't be touched. It's so hard to win any given Sunday. You never know, and especially when on the road. You're right about that. This won't be touched.
Okay, Brett Favre played for a lot of football games, threw a lot of touchdowns, threw a lot of interceptions, threw a lot of yards, won a lot of football games, won a Super Bowl. He's an MVP winner. But here's something that to me, like, this is, of all the records that we're going to review today, this one I think is one of the more impressive ones. Now, this is he played 297 consecutive games as a quarterback. And as I said this, and as I think about this, maybe it does get broken now. I just, with the expanded schedule, it's probably going to expand to another game, and unfortunately, they count the records for the regular season. They don't make an asterisk. Well, this was a 14 game. This was, it's just a record. You just beat the record. And again, longevity, health. I don't know though. It just doesn't seem like quarterbacks are very durable these days. They're always getting hurt. They get a hangnail. 297 straight games is phenomenal.
I 100% agree with that. The fact that it's the Iron Man record, the Cal Ripken type record in the NFL, I think this record is pretty safe. In these day and ages, like I agree with you, the expansion of the season might help with this, but for a quarterback to stay healthy for 18 games now these days, it's pretty rare. It really is. You always get a little banged up here and there.
All right, we're going to go deep in the archives of the NFL for these next three. So Jim Hardy, quarterback, I believe it was with the Chicago Cardinals, threw 8 interceptions in a game. I think every quarterback needs to hang this picture up of Jim Hardy and say, and of course this was long. This one they hardly threw the football, by the way.
Yep.
And I think all of us on our worst of our worst days, CJ Stroud had a tough game in the playoffs. We've all had tough games in the playoffs, but 8 in a game is one. You're going back a long way for someone so that surprisingly is one. I don't think anyone's going to beat this one. I don't. I think if a quarterback got to 5, they'd probably pull him or 6. I just don't think they'll keep a guy, and maybe they will. Maybe they'll say, "Look, hey, you're about 2 from the record. See if you can throw a couple more interceptions, and then you'll break the record here." But this one's not getting broken.
No, I 100% agree with you. The closest is in modern day is Nathan Peterman. Is when he started against the Chargers. He threw 5 picks in a game when he was with the Buffalo Bills. But no, this one is for sure safe.
Mr. Peterman. All right, Paul Krause, 81 career INTs, and which is just insane. A great player for the Minnesota Vikings, and anyone who had, and you think of all the great DBs who have played through the years, and there have been some phenomenal ones, and no one's close to Paul Krause. Again, they're throwing the ball a whole lot more these days, but it doesn't seem like they're getting more interceptions. Unless you just rip the ball out of the hands of you just have to play the Buffalo Bills, just rip the ball out of the hands of the receiver, and you get interceptions. So it's a possibility. I don't think this one's going to happen either.
No, I agree with you. No one will touch this one.
Okay, Don Hudson. This is an insane one. Like this one, he scored 29 points in a quarter.
Cool.
Like in a quarter by himself. It was against the Detroit Lions. They beat the Lions 57-21 or 27 or something like that. Back in the day, right? Because this is clearly back in the day when football players were really football players. But he's got the eye black on, doesn't he? Though, man, he looks good. Don Hudson, 29 points in a quarter. I don't think. Something maybe super fluky would have to happen for that to happen today. Again, that's why you see some of these older players like Paul Krause and Jim Hardy and Don Hudson, because these records have stood around for a long time. I don't see anyone beating this one either.
No, the only way I could see this happening is I think it won't ever happen is if a kicker had 10 straight attempts in a game and made all 10 attempps and broke this record, but
it's a quarter though. It's not a game. This is just a quarter.
Okay, yeah. No, I can't see this one being broken either.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
Willie Flipper Anderson. So a great wide receiver for the Rams, and of course this is the Ernie Zampese offense. Which is what I ran at the University of Utah when I was in college, and a great offense. Jim Everett, of course, he was he lit it up there for a while with the Rams. Flipper Anderson had 336 yards of receiving in a game. So I mean, you think a quarterback alone throwing for 336 yards is a game, especially back then. And that one really surprised I can't say it totally surprises me because that offense was very explosive, But for one player to get 336 yards in a game, doesn't it seem like someone like Randy Moss should have a record like that? Or just because he's a guy that kind of gets down the field a lot and
Yeah,
has a
Jerry
lot of plays.
Rice or Terrell Owens. I remember Julio Jones had like 283, 293 on one weekend when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. But that leads to the question, Scott, how bad were these DBs? How bad was this coverage defense to allow 338 yards?
And this was in a time when the rules were different. Like, yeah, I mean, it's an impressive record. I think there's the potential of it getting broken just because of how insanely wide open football is today. But it stood around for quite some time. All right, Jerry Rice, of course, where do you start with Jerry Rice and all of his many records? But the 22,895, that's the number of yards he has in career yards. And again, he just so far surpassed everyone else. He was the standard. He is the standard. Probably will continue to be the standard forever. But is he a guy? Can that record be broken?
No, I don't see that. The durability of wide receivers these days and how long they last. Like Michael Thomas was a great wide receiver. He's dropped off. I don't see anyone up and coming that could ever touch Jerry Rice's records. Jerry Rice was one of one. He is the greatest wide receiver of all time. No one will touch this.
It's an interesting point because the players are better trained. The game's not as physical. The offense is paramount. Wide receivers, big deal. But it does feel like players are retiring at younger ages now. They make a whole lot more money at a younger age. So it's almost like, yeah. And everyone will tell you this is a young man's game anyways. So, maybe even though they could play longer and even though there's a real possibility of breaking records like this if they did play longer, that you might see it, but I don't think you do. And so, yeah, maybe it does stand. All right, Eric Dickerson, single season 2,105 yards, and that was the single season running back mark. Of course, that over 2,000 mark is kind of that elite standard. There've been a few players. One of my former teammates, Barry Sanders, did that. This was Eric Dickerson's. I believe his was in. It might have still been 14 games when he was rushing, but OJ did it in 14. There have been a few people. Adrian Peterson came close to it in a 16-game schedule. Now there's 17 games, but running backs aren't necessarily featured like they used to be. Does anyone break Eric Dickerson's 2,105 yard season mark in rushing yards?
I think it could be, even in the pass heavy offense, that we live in today's day and age with the NFL. Maybe it could be broken down the road. It depends on who, but I agree with you. This was done in 1983. I think they were playing 16 games, maybe.
Yeah. I don't remember when it changed.
Yeah, but point is, Adrian Peterson was the closest. I think he was like 7 yards short of this goal. But I think somebody could do it one day. I really do.
Yeah, and we know the NFL ebbs and flows, right? So things that are out will come back in. Looks like the running back is coming back a little bit from where it was. This next player would argue vehemently for that to happen. That's Emmitt Smith. His career rushing 18,355 is see, I think this one stays, and I think it stays because running backs come back. I just don't think the running game is like it used to be. I just don't think has the same prevalence. The strategies are different. How running backs are used is different. So I think this one might be one of the safest of all the records to actually stand.
I agree with you. The days of Emmitt Smith, Priest Holmes, Jamal Lewis, the heavy running backs that you ran the ball 30 times in a game were the number one option on a team. Those day and ages are gone. It's sad, but I agree that total career rushing number by Emmitt Smith won't ever be touched. Obviously, you played with Barry. He could have broken that record over Walter Payton, but no, I think Emmitt Smith is pretty for sure guaranteed he'll have that record forever.
Here's one. In fact, this one was a very this photo we're going to see here. Don Shula, all-time wins, 347. I was actually with Coach Shula, or I was actually the quarterback in the game that starting quarterback in the game that against Philadelphia Eagles did. He broke the record, and he went on to win a whole lot more than that. But that was when he actually broke the record. That was one that I thought there's no freaking way in the world. And then along comes Bill Belichick, and it was almost like, oh, Belichick's going to just blow away Shula's record, but he. He didn't. He got way close, and he didn't. And I think Coach Shula would I think he probably had something to do with it. Like Coach Shula had this unique relationship with God. We would practice, of course, in South Florida. Florida is the lightning capital of the world, and it would rain almost every afternoon. And there'd be lightning, be going on. Coach Shula, he would not call practice. And he literally would stand next to me and he goes, "You're taller than I am. You'll get struck before I do. And I'm way more important than you are." So, and then the other one was, you're in training camp and you have these meetings between the morning, afternoon practice. And again, rained every afternoon and just torrential. You were just like, oh, this. And sure enough, 5 minutes before the meeting ended, it stopped raining and we go out to practice. And I swear, Coach Shula, I don't know. He just said, "Look, okay, God, I have to get my football practices in, and I understand you got to put the rain and all this stuff. So just make it rain. I'll let you make it rain during my meeting time, but I got to practice. So you got to cut it out by the time I get to practice." I just think, and I think that's the same thing. He said, you can give Belichick, all these wins and these Super Bowls, but by darn it, you cannot let him beat my record. And I do. I think he had this relationship, and God said, "Fine, okay." And because I think it goes back to the 17-0 Dolphins, and all these teams have tried to beat him through the years, and they just never. I think if anyone had a relationship with God, it was Coach Shula, and he was highly favored. I'll just put it that way. All right, last one. Otto Graham, 10 championships in a row. It's not 10 championships. It's 10 in a row. And there's no freaking. Well, first of all, did you think anyone could break Shula's record?
I don't think anybody could break Shula's record. The turnover rate. I mean, we talk about it with athletes.
Right.
Turnover rate for coaches is absurd these days. I don't see that record being broken. With Otto Graham's, I don't see anybody breaking that either. The fact is, he won, I think it was 6 straight in the league before the Browns joined the NFL, and then the Browns won 4 straight in the NFL when it came to the championships. I don't think anybody will break that record. Otto Graham, Jim Brown, nobody was stopping that. I don't care what defense you came up with.
If Tom Brady and Bill Belichick can't do it, now they may have gotten to 10 championships, but certainly not in a row. So if they can't do it, then it's unbeatable. All right, there you have it, folks. Some crazy, long-standing records in the NFL. It'll be fascinating to see if any of them get broke and truly remarkable accomplishments by some incredible players.
Circulon C1 Series Clad with Scratch Defense Non-Stick. The luxury and confidence of premium clad stainless steel meets Scratch Defense Extreme Non-Stick that won't scratch, ever. With an ultra-thick aluminum core for high-performance heating. Maximize cooking, minimize cleaning. Discover the unmatched durability and elegance of clad stainless steel. Scratch-free, worry-free, forever.
Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. Whether at home or on the go, NordVPN ensures your digital freedom. Stay secure. Download NordVPN today at nordvpn.com. That's NORDVPN.com. The grinder mentality that Randy and Brent Habert built into 44 Pro runs deep within our team. Every member shares a passion for the craft, the game, and most importantly, the player. When you step onto the field with a 44 Pro custom glove, you'll feel the difference. It's not just a glove, it's a 44 Pro. Crafted with dedication, made for performance, and built to last. Get your custom glove today at 44pro.com and experience the 44 Pro difference. That's 44pro.com, 44 Pro.
At Matt Piffle, we believe in celebrating your journey, past, present, and future. Our unique personalized products are designed to boost your confidence, elevate creativity, and honor what matters most. From custom home decor to meaningful gifts, we help you cherish the memories that make you who you are. Visit mapiffle.com and start celebrating your story today.
Yeah, we're good. Hey, sports fans, welcome back. It's the Down and Dirty. Scott Mitchell here. So glad you could join us. Thank you, and thank you again. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. All right. There's all these crazy Pro Bowls and skills challenges and all this stuff. And as I've mentioned earlier in the show, I was a part of that, and it was actually really fun. In fact, one year, so they had the quarterback challenge, as I've said in the past, and I believe we have some footage of that when I was actually playing. And so yeah, that's me right there, pointing in the crowd to my 4 fans that are there. And so this is the read and recognition, where you actually throw to moving targets. And in this competition right here, I actually set a record. And I think people ask, is that fun? Did you enjoy that? Was that and it was a blast. Everyone that was there actually just was having a good time, except for Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh was the guy who took it serious. He was the guy, he was like, okay. Now, see, what you don't realize here is they have all the targets moving, right? So they're all moving. There's Brett Favre being Brett Favre. Like I said, everyone was having a good time except for Jim Harbaugh. He was like he actually practiced for this. By the way, he lived on a golf course, and he got on the driving range with these targets and actually practiced this exact drill on his golf course. So. Everyone kind of made fun of him, but secretly for me, I was like, man, I'm impressed by that, because this can be an intimidating group. You're here with all these players, and so it's one of those things where you could be that you could be crowd shamed, for kind of, it's like, hey guys, we kind of got to know the tempo of this. The tempo is casual. We don't want to make anyone look bad or, any of this stuff. So just kind of do your thing. Not Harbaugh. Harbaugh was like, he was prepared for it. He worked for it. He trained for it. And by the way, he won it. He won the overall thing. You did get money for that, by the way. And I did get paid to do that. So, or not that exactly, but I won. And that was, Brett Favre was like, man, you just won some money right there. And he called it cabbage, whatever. So who knows? All right. We're going to go through, and we saw this article about, I think it was on Bleacher Report, and they were talking about grading every team this year. So I thought, okay, well, and I kind of looked through their grades, like, nah, I'm not sure I buy that one, or this one or that one. So I went through and I did my own grading of every team in the NFL this year and kind of how they did. So it's now you can get into, like, this whole philosophy of Well, they made a significant improvement. Like they far exceeded maybe the expectation. Or you could get into just kind of, well, who won and who lost and who, kind of thing. And that's more of where I am. Because that's how you're great. That just so that's how you're graded. You either did it or you didn't. And that's the mindset in the NFL. So you don't get a pass for style points or shucks, you guys didn't even come close to make the playoffs, but you're 50% better than you were a year ago. And that does no one cares about that. All we want is our team to win. And so that's kind of how I did it. So but I can give A's and B minuses and pluses and all that stuff. And we'll do that. So the teams that I thought had A grades this year, the New England Patriots, clearly, and they get an A plus. They had dramatic improvement from last year, and they look to be a very good football team, playing great defense, quarterback, young, making plays, and has really stood up to the crucible of the NFL and the pressure and everything behind it. So definite A plus. The Denver Broncos, they get an A. They were right there, and I think had the quarterback situation been different, they might have moved up. But again, it's not what it coulda, shoulda. It's what it was, and they got to the title game, so they definitely are an A team. Another A team, the Seattle Seahawks. Again, just far exceeded anyone's expectation or surprise. I would almost say all of these teams I have as A's are all surprise teams except for one, and that's the Rams. But Seattle's definitely an A+ team. I'm picking Seattle to win the Super Bowl, so there you have it. The Rams, an A team as well. How they were a whisker away from actually having the championship game at home. They were really close to winning the whole entire NFC championship. They were right there. You could almost argue they were an A+ team, but they didn't get to the Super Bowl. So the only teams that got to Super Bowl to me are A+ teams, which are two, right? The Patriots and the Seahawks. And then I have one more team that I really feel deserves an A, and that's the Chicago Bears. And I'm not doing it for Martin's sake to make him feel better about things, but I'm just doing it because I think the Bears, they just had a remarkable year. And I think the Bears are one of those teams like to watch out for in the future. Now, all these teams kept their head coaches, by the way, but there are some assistants that didn't make it. And that's just mind-boggling to me with Sean Payton and some of the choices he made. It'll be interesting with the Rams to see what happens with them. They got to pay Puka or not, and I would hope they would. Puka's an interesting receiver because he was a phenomenal high school player. Played here in the state of Utah, and they went to Washington. You're like, yeah, okay. I think it was Chris Peterson was there. But really liked it, and it just didn't fit right. Then he came back, went to BYU, played with his brother, and he was always injured. And I don't know that they had a quarterback that could throw it to him. I don't know if they used him right, but he just kind of, underutilized, underappreciated, underperformed at BYU, and then all of a sudden he just lights out when he got in the NFL. But it's his ability to run routes. It's his ability to catch the ball in tough situations. But then it's his ability after he catches it to just, he's just hard-nosed. He's a tough out when it comes to the receiver situation. Anyways, the Rams will be interesting moving forward. Okay, B's. Now, there were the Bills, the Buffalo Bills. And, of course, if you're a Bills and you're a Buffalo Bill, you get a B. That's just kind of how it is. And really, I'm going to say a B-, and a B- in that this team really should have had more, done more, been more than what they were. They just, and clearly they're a team that's going to have a new head coach. But they, again, got into the playoffs, won a game in the playoffs. And but they're a B-. The Texans, Houston Texans, they're a B plus to me. They're so close right there. But they're a team, the quarterback, I've always liked CJ Stroud. I liked him early on in his career, and then something has just happened. And I honestly don't know what it is. I really don't, but it's something is just a miss with him. It's just off with him. I don't know. I have no idea what I don't know. I just don't know. He's just not the same player, not the same confidence. And he's got the skills and he's done it before. But it just something's just off. So if they can get that righted, oh my goodness, are they going to be a team to watch out for them? Watch out for the Bears. Watch out, it might be the Bears and the Texans in the Super Bowl next year. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at something like that. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles, they're a B minus. It's just, I think there's a lot of expectation. I think even early on in the season, you said this team is going to get back to the Super Bowl, and they just got funny, and it just gets funnier and funnier with them. And then the 49ers, I'm going to give the 49ers a B plus, actually. I know they got blown out by Seattle, but I'm just telling you, the 49ers, I think, did more with less this year. I'm going to give them a B plus. How do you like that? So I got the Bills, Eagles B minus, Texans, 49ers B plus. Okay, moving on. We're going to get into the C category. And the C category to me is just average, right? It's like, whatever. You're just kind of there. You're passing, but you're certainly not, you're certainly not kind of in the upper tier at this point. And there's a few teams here that I think it's going to be painful to be C's because they should have been so much more. So the Jacksonville Jaguars to me are a C, and they're a C plus. They're really close to that B range. Made a huge jump this year. They're another team I think you got to watch out for moving forward. They could have serious contention. It feels like Trevor Lawrence is getting the TLC that he loves and deserves, and he's responding to it. The Chargers, massively disappointing this year to me. They just didn't get more out of Justin Herbert. It's going to be Josh McDaniel. That's going to be fascinating. So I just kind of was like, I'm disappointed in the Chargers. I picked them as my Super Bowl team. I'm gonna say C plus for the Jaguars. I'm just gonna say C for the Chargers. The Green Bay Packers. Micah Parsons, I think that actually hurt them to some degree. I think he would have had an impact on that team more than they had. Of course, they lost to the Bears. The Pack it's teetering right now. They're probably a C. They might be closer to C minus. The Panthers are. Oh man, this is hard. The Panthers probably should be a D, and yet they made the playoffs, and it was really they were playing better as the season went on. It was a horrible decision or division. They had a losing record. Statistically, they were one of the worst offensive teams in the modern era to actually make the playoffs. So it wasn't like they were just really blowing it out of the water. And there's going to be some challenging decisions because the Texans and the Panthers have to make a choice at their quarterback situation. And I wonder if that's part of what's been bugging CJ Stroud is he knows it's like, man, I'm right on the cusp of having this just insane money, generational money, a lot of guaranteed money, a lot of money, period. And I just wonder if that might be the thing that's impacted him. Bryce Young has actually gotten better. I never thought Bryce Young would get a second contract. And those are those gray areas to a type of decisions, are these guys going to turn into less or more? And it's tough, I think, at this time to really determine if they are or they aren't. But the Panthers are kind of a C minus to me. The Steelers, I would say, I would give them maybe a C to C plus. So they're my other team in the C range. The Steelers are, it's so hard. I'm fascinated to see what happens with Mike McCarthy, and if Aaron Rodgers comes back, who knows? Who knows what will happen there? And it's just so hard. It's so hard. It's hard when you are just good enough to not be bad, which is what the Steelers have been for a long time. And what makes it hard is it's really hard to get that really good quarterback. Unless you just get lucky in a later round with a guy, man, it's just hard. It's just so hard. All right, the D's. Now, so basically, all of the teams A, B, C made the playoffs. So there wasn't a team that didn't make the playoffs that got a grade above C. So C is passing, right? It's at least you passed. Barely, you got there. So then you have your D's and your F's. Now, as I was going through this, I'm wondering, whatever happened to E? Like in the grading system, like whatever happened to E? Because I guess, is it excellent? Is it I don't know. I can't think of a word that's like for E, because F is like failure. D is like dumb. C is like I don't know. Don't make me think of these things off the top of my head. All right, so D's. These are some tough ones, and some of these teams could have really had health been a different thing. Certain breaks gone a different way. These teams, it wasn't necessarily that just on their own merit by themselves with all their good players there, they were bad. Those are those typically are F teams. But the D teams are, could have gone either way. They could have gone to the Fs, they could have gone to the Cs or Bs or maybe even As. But they certainly. So the Falcons, I think they've had some improvement, but it's still a question mark. This is kind of that year where Michael Penix just really has to just make a turn. Like, and that's to me is job one with the Atlanta Falcons and what they're going to do. And so I would just give them a D. I wouldn't give them a plus or minus, just a D. Then you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, I'm going to give a D minus. Again, something weird. I know they had injuries, wide receiver, and I know it impacts things to some degree, but Baker Mayfield just kind of slid off a little bit, and they were a team that was hot. I mean, they were on their way to type of team. I'm going to give the Buccaneers a D minus. They should have been a lot more. The Detroit Lions, same thing. I mean, it's almost an identical type of thing. There was a lot of expectation for this team, and I think internally, how much the coordinator changes impact the team, not really sure. There's something is amiss. Something's different there. Should have been a lot better. I'm going to give the Lions a D minus. Believe it or not, I'm going to give the Minnesota Vikings. They're kind of, and it's not so much JJ McCarthy healthy, not healthy type of thing. It's the up and down play. And it's hard, with a young quarterback who's been injured. If you're in there all the time, you're consistently playing, you're just going to get a better rhythm, a better feel for things. And so they're kind of I'll give the Vikings a D. The Cowboys, with all the stupid things they did, Brian Schottenheimer, I thought did a pretty decent job. The Cowboys were competitive. They were close. I might give the Cowboys a D plus. Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, it still felt a little rough for the Chiefs. It still felt like they had a hangover. Of course, Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. I'm going to give Kansas City D minus. Just didn't do it for me this year. The Indianapolis Colts. This is a team, I think, of all the teams in the D range, could have jumped up to an A range. Could have made some real noise in the playoffs. Is the Colts, and Daniel Jones getting injured had a massive impact on them. Phillip Rivers came back for a hot minute, which was weird, but it had no impact, no bearing on anything that was happening there. Almost a distraction from things. Anyways, Colts D. I'm just going to give them a D, not a minus or a plus. Clearly, injuries, I think, affect them more than anyone. The Ravens are a D. Ravens, to me, are a D minus. The Ravens are a team that just uninspired, should have been so much more, had some tough breaks, really thought they'd turned a corner with things, from their early losses in the season, and they just didn't. And surprisingly, and of course they have a new coach and all that good stuff. Can Lamar Jackson play inspired football and winning football? Can he win in the playoffs? Remains to be seen. And then the other D team is the Dolphins, and they kind of, they just kind of fought their way through a very average season. And of course, they have a new coach, a new direction there, and hopefully they can figure things out. All right, there's all my D teams. Now the teams that failed, and boy did they fail. And that's why I'm wondering: is there a word? Can we get another letter in here? And I'm trying to think of what letter in the alphabet would be the absolute worst. Like, what's the worst? Is it Q? Is it? I don't know. Is it Z? Is it X? X is kind of, I don't know. Anyways, so the lowest on the grading is F. Of course, the Arizona Cardinals, they kind of own F. They're kind of F'd. Actually, all these teams are kind of F'd, so they fit here really well. The Raiders, I think, could be the coolest team of all the teams in the NFL to cheer for, especially now that they're in Las Vegas, and they're just the Raiders. Autumn is a pirate. I mean, there's just so much history and mystique, and it's just fun and fan base and all that, and they're awful. Well, if the Raiders, and of course, I don't think the Raiders the NFL wants the Raiders. They don't want the bad boys to, win kind of thing. And the Jets are a hot mess. By the way, Cardinals, F-. Can you get lower than F? Is it F+, F-? Yeah, F-, F- for the Raiders, F- for the Jets. The Saints, I'm going to give the Saints an F+. They might, there's a couple of teams in here, I might give them an F+. The Saints are one of them. They were very young, that new coach, and they started to make some moves. They won some important games. They were competitive. They were trying, but they just weren't very good. So they're F+. The Washington Commanders, massively disappointing. Of course, Jaden Daniels injured, so they're a team. We'll just give them an F. It probably should be an F, just an F because the injuries. The Giants could be an F+. I'll give them an F+. They got something to look forward to, but they didn't win a lot of games. They did not win a lot of games. Maybe it helps them with some good draft picks, moving forward. They've got some pieces. Can Harbaugh do some magic? We'll find out. The Titans, they are an F-. They're young quarterback, really challenged, bad. Cincinnati Bengals, I don't even know. There should be a special category for certain organizations, and the Bengals might be one. But they're an F. They went all in, and of course Joe Burrow got hurt, and everybody thinks Joe Burrow is kind of this guy, and he's kind of been injured. He's been good, but he's also been, not as good, and I think this is a really important year coming up for Joe Burrow. And I think a lot of it, he feels like maybe he's trying to get out of Cincinnati. I don't know. We'll see. And the Browns, talk about special cat. If there's a special category, it's the Jets, it's the Browns, maybe the Cardinals, but the Browns, wow. You should swap. Like if Jerry Jones wants a drama and that he just seems to be attracted to it, and he should be the coach. He should be the coach of the Cleveland Browns, because they're F-. Bengals, I'm giving an F-. They should have been so much more. All right, there's my teams. There's my grades. Hope you enjoy it.